Hello, it's me, and we're going to take a Rubik's Cube and do horrible and unspeakable things with it, chop it down, hack it up, and we're going to end up with a HD cube. And we did that just by chopping it down and then turning the sides into like this, and then creating some false sides to almost have like a dodecahedron shape into this hexagonal dipyramid. Well, we're going to kind of feel a little bit bad about what we just did to the cube. So we're going to take this hexagonal dipyramid, we're going to build it up, but we're going to build it up back into a cube and make it a little bit off center though, so that it's no longer the top portion that moves on the face. The face isn't going to be the top portion, it's going to be along the side here, along the axis. Build this back up as a cube, still keeping this as a movable face, but this as the new false side, and end up with a axis cube. So this axis cube basically looks very much, well, not so much like a Rubik's Cube, but what it did do is it redefined the sides as towards the axis here. Well, we're going to take this axis cube, and then we're going to put one side just off kilter here a little bit, chop that down, build up the other parts to once again be a cube, and end up with a ghost cube. So a ghost cube, much like the axis cube.
Creeps me out.
So it still turns on the axis, but it can't turn here unless you put it off to the side, and then once you do, and only once you do, then it can turn, just to enhance the challenge. Well, we're going to take this this ghost cube and once again hack it down, chop it down to the same kind of thing, and end up with once again the Ghost Hexagonal Dipyramid, which retains the top and the bottom portion, but still you have to solve it. You have to kind of move it off kilter a little bit. Now, because of the shape of this, it's a little harder to find where it's supposed to go. But once you do, then you can move it in your typical fashion, if I can. And there it goes. So that's the natural progression, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a solution, or I'm going to go through an actual solve of how to do this guy over here. So just to reiterate, we have a progression of events here, chopping this down and ending up with this. Now this is towards the end of it the same kind of a thing. So these are similar kinds of puzzles. The only difference is this took a little bit more of an evolutionary journey to get here, and we have a degree of convergent evolution regarding its structure and its form on the inside. However, the outside, this more represents the ghost cube. And when you look at these two intermediate evolutionary stages, you can see a pretty good amount of similarity in the structure with these two as well. We've got this triangle over here, but the difference is this side and this side correlate pretty well, or I should say this side here and this side here correlate pretty well, but the other side has been taken off kilter, giving us our little natural evolutionary tree, taking it down here, back up to here, and to here. So we're going to go through the techniques and the solve of this hexagonal dipyramidal ghost puzzle, ghost cube. Now what's fun about this, the challenge of the ghost cube is always the fact that you don't have any colors to help guide you, and you really have to solve it kind of in a vacuum. That I can't really correlate the edges with the center over here, because as you can see, they don't really line up. Well, when you've done the ghost when you've done the ghost repeatedly and a lot of different times, you find yourself getting more and more comfortable with it, and you start to memorize it a little bit. You get more familiar, so it gets faster and faster. So by adding this to it, takes you right back to the beginning of how to solve a ghost cube, and enhances the challenge because it's a different kind of a structure. Okay, so once again, basically take these two guys over here, put them together, and out spawns this guy over here. So let's go through the solve. The guy who made this for me is the same guy who did this guy over here. So with these solves here, I don't like to memorize too much with it because it helps enhance the strategy. We all know how to do 3x3 solves. We know how to do supercube solves. So we'll go ahead and do this, trying to use some inductive reasoning, see if we can get ourselves out of any pitfalls. So what I'm going to do is, just to demonstrate the motion of this puzzle, I'm going to take an edge, line it up with a center. Here's a center over here. Edge line this up, and then I can start the scramble. Now once you get started with the ghost scramble, it becomes fairly easy to move it around, because then you're not really held to the particular shape. And as I'm scrambling this, you'll see that it actually starts to look more like a cube than a hexagonal die pyramid. Turn, turn, turn. And I'm just going to keep doing this until I have what I think might be a good, challenging scramble. Abracadabra. Okay, so where shall we begin? Well, so I'm noticing different kinds of centers, and I've got this top over here and this bottom over here because they look the same. So because they look the same, that's probably what this is. So I'm going to go ahead and try that. These, I have no idea if it's rotated. I do know that because it's not a 4-layer puzzle, that these centers are pretty fixed in where they're supposed to be. So I'm going to start off seeing if I can solve one side in a vacuum. That's generally how I do. So looking at this, I see that this center is here. This edge is here, and I'm going to say that that's correct. And let's see what else we can correlate with this. Well, I can try to correlate it with the next pattern of the next segment over here. So let's find one where you can have a cohesive pattern. In other words, I see that there's a line over here and a line over here, which means if I were to put an edge with that line, I can try to find other corners that have similar lines. So if I move this up over here, now I'm going to go for the corners next. So how about this coming up to here? Just like that. Now does that fit? Sure, I guess it can. This looks a little bit on the long side here. So I'm going to take that one under advisement. Here's another one here. Let's see if this might fit better. I put this in here, and it looks like any one of these will do. So I'll just keep this in here for now. So I'm going to find another corner, maybe this that goes into here. Well, actually that's an edge. No, okay, so here's a corner. So maybe this comes into here, or this long line might come into here. So let's see what happens if we take this and go turn, turn, and turn. Okay, so this doesn't really belong with this. I like the line here, but this doesn't seem to match up. So I'm probably going to have another one that looks like this, maybe this guy over here. So I don't have a definitive strategy here. I'm just trying to match things up and see if they work. This is kind of like a reboot of the ghost concept. Now this looks better. This seems to match here pretty well. So I'm going to say that this is pretty good over here. I've got a nice solid edge two-corner pair. So now I've got to find an edge that comes into here. Well, I've only got a couple edges to choose from. You can see that these two all fit flush with this, so they can fit flush over here. I'm laying odds that the edge that comes in here is something that looks like this, actually, because it has to have a long end like this over here. So let's see what happens if I take this edge and move it up to here to see if this long end fits with this long end over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this out of the way. We'll do an R, then I'll do a 2F, and an R, and you can see this is backwards over here. So it ain't that. But maybe it's this. So let's move this one out of the way. I'm just going to do an algorithm to separate this out. Move it out of the way without destroying what I just did, because perspective will be an issue. Okay, after having done that, now I can see about moving this guy in. So once again, to move this out of the way while placing this one, I'll do R, 2F, R. And it works. Now understand, what I did is I'm not trying to invent algorithms. I'm just describing what I just did, but I didn't have that pre-planned or anything like that. It's just kind of an intuitive solve. A lot of this positioning is more of an intuitive type solve. So, okay, that's fine. I've got this. What about an edge or a corner over here? It might be easier, instead of finding corners, to just find the next edge. So I'm going to say, well, what happens if I move this edge into here? So this time I'm going to do Li, 2F, L. And it's good. So I have this in over here too. Again, I have no idea where things are in correlation with this. And I would welcome a strategy where you put these in first and then solve these cuboid style. So that's pretty good. So now maybe I can find an edge over here. A corner over here, rather. Well, how about this guy? Well, whatever it is going to complete what appears to be an emerging triangle, and I see a triangle over here. Maybe I have to turn this around a bit. Nope, not yet. and up. And do we like it? Sure. So that's pretty good over here. Now what I need to do is I need to find another edge. Now I'm running out of edges, so that's good news. So what I'm going to do is the same commutator / algorithm, and I'm just going to place this and see what happens. So I'm going to do an L to F, L. And I like it, so it's good. So this is all in here. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Very assertively said.
I'm shy.
You're shy. I know that to not be true. So this is going to come here to maybe complete a triangle over here. So I see a little triangle end over here. And nope. How about this? To slide in with this. It looks like it's kind of at an angle. Put it in, and well, this seems to fit here nicely, interestingly enough, but not here. So my only saving grace will be another edge that looks a little like this, but maybe smaller. How about this guy? Because I could be mixing apples and oranges here. And here, I think I might be mixing apples and oranges because this seems to fit well here, but not with this. This seems to be an odd guy out. So where do I go from here? Bless you. Gesundheit. Unless that was a cough, then I take it back.
A sneeze.
A sneeze. Yeah, see, this and this don't seem to be meshing too well. I'm going to go so far as to say that I may have to abandon this corner, this edge rather, and put something else in there. But what else? Well, I've got a bunch to choose from. Not this, not this, not this, not this. These all look like they belong here in a way, which leaves me to this guy over here. I'm just going to check it out. 1, 2, 1, 2. Nope. Okay. Going to run a little experiment here.
Daddy, is it okay if I turn the sound up?
Just a little bit. Move this here, 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 down, and down. Aha! See, don't be afraid to spread out and take a chance, because this now fit perfectly with this side and with this side. Couldn't really predict that, but what I have is I have my first side.
Jet.
Congratulations! All of the viewers just learned how to spell jet. Very good. So, does that spell jet? Very good. How do you spell jet?
Very nice.
How do you spell jet? Okay. So now I have to figure out what happens with this. So here's what I do. I oftentimes let luck rule the day. So here's an edge over here. So I know that this is where it's supposed to be. Now, is it right side up regarding this side? That's going to become more apparent as I fill more of these guys in. But I know this is correct over here. So I'm going to turn this part around to match this and see if it works. Just to check that out, I'm going to undo this for a second. And double turn this, and nope. So I know not to waste my time with that. Just have to remember what I did. You're a goofball. You're a goofball. What about this part over here? So I'm going to double turn, and nope. Before I get myself hopelessly lost. Now, what's interesting is this correlates here. Can I use that? The fact that this seems to correlate with this over here. So I'm thinking this doesn't really belong here if this comes into this over here. And here's what I mean. So I'm going to do this. I know that this comes down to here. You see that correlates pretty well. Which means that this has to come over to here. So if this is going to come over to here, that means this has to line up with something here. So it doesn't line up with this, and it must line up with this because this is a solid line and this is a solid line. What that tells me is that this is backwards. I want to move this all the way over to here. I want to turn this 180 degrees because then this can be here and this can be here, and I know that this doesn't correlate with this or this. This has a nice happy home over here. So I'm going to turn this 180 degrees. Let's get this part out of the way. The way that I'm going to do that is if this is up, I'm going to go 2 up, 2 R, 2 up, 2 R, and 2 up. That fancy bit of footwork should, if my theory is correct, land these two in the proper position, ready to accept this guy. Let's see if it does. U, R, U, I, R, I, L, I. Sorry about that. L, U, I. Well, never mind. Messed that up. And turn and turn. As the glass shatters in Minecraft, we can see this is fine. So the theory was correct. So we're using the concepts of the 3x3 solve and seeing if we can do inductive reasoning. So this is good over here. We like this. We like this over here. And now we just have to turn this in the proper direction. So where does this turn in correlation with this? Well, we can surmise that it's not this side, it's not this side, it's one of these two. This is kind of set down, so I think this is set down. So once again, I believe that this is this has to rotate by 90 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go 2F, well, move this here, move this here, move this here, move this here, and move this here. Okay, now I've got to bring back that piece that I kind of nicked off over there, oh, which might actually be this piece. So let's bring this piece up, turn, 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 and turn. Okay, so if my theory is correct, this should slide into here, and this should come into here. Will it work? What do you guys think? All right, such blind faith. Let's see if it's sound, and no, that's why you should never have blind faith, because this didn't work over here. However, maybe it was this piece. So let's try this piece here. There's a degree of equivocation, which means one piece looks a little too much like the other piece. So let's see what happens if we try this guy. And I move this in. This doesn't correlate there. And this does correlate here. So let's see if this works. Turn, 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 turn. Yes, turn, 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 and down, and yes, it worked. This is good, this is good, this is good, this is good. And this, I don't think is good because I don't think this piece was supposed to be so close to this. So what we have left is, at least I know now that this is oriented correctly. This seems to fit here, and this edge has that line, which I think belongs on this side. Okay, so now at least I know that this is oriented correct. I'm not sure about this, but we can try to find the other one that goes here. Now when I see this shape, generally with these ghost puzzles, to keep it symmetric, you've got this shape over here, then the next one is going to look a lot like this. So I lay the odds that the next shape is actually going to be this. It's not this. So I'm going to pull this out of here. Turn. This is why this is cubing 201, because you have to take techniques and apply them to the next level. Where'd I put it? I put it right over here. Okay, so where's this supposed to go? Well, I think it's supposed to line up with this. If I move this down, I see this doesn't correlate. But let's see if this really does belong here. I'm going to go so far as to say, I'm just going to say it is. I'm going to go by my gut with that. So where does this correlate with? Not this side. Is it this side or this side? Well, it's hard to say. So I'm going to move this up real quick and down real quick, and I see it correlates with this over here. So up and down. What that tells me is that this is supposed to be on top, and this is supposed to be over here. So now I'm going to move it to where this and this side here correlates with this side, so that this can be over here. So I just have to remember this side, 1, 2, bump it out of the way, bring this in, 1, 2, and bring this back in. So at the end of the day, this should correlate here, and this, according to my calculation, should correlate with this. And let's see if it does. Turn, 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 and down. And what do you know about that? It does just fine. So now I know all these centers in relation to each other is correlated fine, and I just have to find this. Now the moment of truth. Does this top finished side correlate with this nearly topped or nearly finished middle side? So let's move this around, move this around. And do we like it? Yes. This all seems to fit in quite nicely. Now I could have done this opposite. I could have put every one of these here, Or I might have put this in upside down, but I like how this is. You can see this feels nice and smooth over here, except this part, but this is the part that's not in yet. So let me line these up with the edges once again. Now, what's supposed to go into here? Well, it's the other piece that looks like this. So I'm going to say it's this piece over here. So does it correlate down here? Well, actually, no, this has a large slab to it, which means it probably accepts this large corner over here. So probably this guy. As this shares a structure similar to this, if I move this down like so, this correlates here. So the calculation is that this can come into here. That's what I enjoy about these variations of the ghost cubes. You haven't done them long enough to have them memorized. So now this is all in, and if I move this in place, we see that this correlates well here. So this layer by layer solve, now we're nicely calibrated. How's the Legos coming?
Good. I just gotta take off this piece.
How's the iPad going?
Oh, how's the iPad going? Alright, so now the top layer. So what are we going to correlate with here? Well, the first thing that we have to do is we have to flip things right side up. That's not too hard because I can see this fits flush here, this fits flush here, so I have that L formation. And what this algorithm is going to do is keep this the same. This is going to come over here and flip. This is going to come over here and flip, and this will slide over here, which means the next step is I'm going to have a line because this will flip right, this will flip wrong, and this will slide but still be wrong. So that's F, R, U, R, I, U, I, F, I, and predictably that's what happens. So the next thing that's going to happen from here is this will stay the same. This will slide here but be correctly oriented. This will flip and become correctly oriented, and this will flip and become correctly oriented. F, R, U, R, I, U, I, F, I. And predictably we have a cross, but now what about the relative place that they're supposed to? What's supposed to be next to each other? I've got this over here. I've got this over here. Now I can maybe surmise where these guys are supposed to be. This can't be here because if I were to look at the line over here, I see that this line takes me straight to this very large corner. This very large corner has to be with this very large oblong center, edge rather, because this is what makes the point of that dipyramid. Which means that if you trace this out, it has to find its way to ultimately this over here. This has to find its way to this side over here. Which means that this can't be right because this large slab is facing the opposite way. It should be turned to face this way. Which means what I'm going to need to do is this has to come over to here, because once this is over here, then this will correlate better. In other words, this open end here, this large slab, has to be facing the direction of this to accommodate this edge over here. What I mean by that is, what the heck do I mean by that? But in any case, this large slab here has to be pointing in the same direction as this edge with a small line. And that's what has to happen here. So I'm going to do R, U, R, I, U, R, 2U, R, I. Okay, so do we like this form? Well, we like the fact that this and this are in the proper place. So I'm going to go with the notion that these are set up correctly, because this long thing is supposed to be over here, which means let's put it there. So now I'm ready to do, now what I could also do is see if I can correlate these centers with where they're supposed to be in correlation with the middle layer, but I'm not going to do that yet. So I'm going to do the algorithm that winds these around until this is over here, because at least I know that's where this is supposed to be. U, R, U, I, L, I, U, R, I, U, I, L. Not yet, so we do it again. Turn, turn, turn. So I only half know kind of what I'm doing, but I like this over here. So this is going to be set in stone. We like this over here. Now what's supposed to be here? Well, as long as the sticker's still on here, I think it's this, because this is that line, this is a line, and this is a line, which means everything must be where it should be, according to my thinking. So I'm going to just go ahead and do my RIDI, RDs. These guys here, and unless I falsely equivocated one piece on the top with another piece on the bottom, we should be okay. RIDI, RD, RIDI, RD. And I'm skeptical that it's going to do it, to be honest with you. DI, RD. Okay. What I'm seeing is that I think this likes to be here, but not next to this guy. R-I, D-I-R, D, R-I, D-I-R. Okay, so we got this back. And I think what we need to do, I'm going to try to keep these in correlation with each other, but change the configuration with this. The way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to do the algorithm that I use when this is in and this is in, but these two aren't. So when it's next to each other, I just turn it to where it's to the right and to the back. And that's what I'm going to do. To the right and to the back, and go like R, U, R, I, U, R, to U, R, I. So what it did is it did flip these guys here. And in so doing, I think this may be able to stay amongst this. So this looks like it might be able to fit well over here. So what I'm going to do is keep this where it is and move this into here. Turn, 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 and turn. Do it again. Turn, turn, and turn. Okay. So this is looking good. If I assume this is correct, this is obviously correct. This is my wild card. So I'm going to just move this in first. R-I, D-I, R, D. Not liking it yet. R-I, D-I, R, D, and aha! We're good. Okay, so now I'm going to keep following suit. And I'm not totally convinced that I've got it all figured out, because I may have made a wrong assumption about false equivocation. So this is good, which leaves just this one to go. R-I, D-I, R, D, R-I, D-I, R, D. Keep turning it around until it's good. This is good, so we'll see if they all correlate. This is fine as is, this is fine, this is fine. Now I'm just going to wheel it around to see if it makes sense. This makes sense over here, this makes sense over here, and we got it. So merged out of this is the hexagonal dipyramidal form. So there it is. Now, would I be able to substitute the top for the bottom? Do I like the fact that there's a little bit of a cleft here? Not completely, but this correlates pretty well. This fits pretty snug over here. And I just don't think that it really fits 100%. So you can kind of make it fit over there. So that's pretty good. But in any case, there it is, hexagonal dipyramidal ghost cube solve. A very fun variation of the ghost concept, where we kind of move off into the various structural directions that this came from as we went into our evolutionary forms with this. Might as well put this back in a way that makes sense in terms of how it was put together. But there you have it. You take one form of a cube, take its methods, extend it as a supercube, put it up to still continue the supercube concept, add more of a challenge by doing the ghost concept, and then take it back down to hexagonal dipyramid using exactly the same concepts, but intuitive reasoning, well, intuition and deductive reasoning in terms of placement to see where things are supposed to be. So, there you have it. Thanks for watching.